Avi, good to have you part of our coverage here in Canada. Thanks for your time.
Hello, Todd. Thank you for having me.
How significant is what we're seeing today? What do you think?
Well, it is, of course, very significant. I mean, for Israel, the top priority is to bring back the hostages, the civilians, the babies, the kids, the women, the old people that were kidnapped by Hamas on October 7th. So obviously, it's very significant.
Tell me about what this means for the next couple of days here in terms of what we may see. Avi, more hostages released, more Palestinian prisoners being released from Israeli custody. What do you think we're going to see?
Well, according to the agreement signed, in the next couple of days, there's supposed to be additional release of both Israeli hostages and Palestinian prisoners that are imprisoned in Israel. I hope that this whole deal will be completed as planned. All in all, in the next 4 days, according to the understanding and the agreement, total number of like 50 Israeli hostages is supposed to be released in return for 150 Palestinians who were convicted in Israeli courts for being engaged in terror plots, and they will be released in return for that.
Avi, how confident are you that the next few days will go smoothly?
Well, Todd, look, we all hope that it will go smoothly. We should be always remember that there should be or could be some kind of like, unexpected the episodes or developments on the ground. I hope that's not going to be the case. It seems to me, as of now at least, that both sides have an interest, of course, in completing that phase of the swap. But obviously, this is just a first phase, because I think that not less important. Obviously, currently it's a very dramatic scene. We all understand it, but it's enormously important also to look to the phase beyond that specific phase and forward.
What is the phase beyond, Avi, in your mind? I mean, you are very familiar with what's happening in that part of the world. You live it every day.
Yes, Todd. Well, I'll try to put it as shortly as I can. Look, Hamas is trying to exhaust the card of the hostages as much as possible, because for Hamas, it's one of the major cards for their own survival. Because reminding you, following the Hamas brutal attack on Israel on October 7th, Israeli government ordered the Israeli Defense Forces to eliminate Hamas rule in Gaza Strip, and this is what the Israeli forces are doing on the ground in Gaza Strip. So for Hamas, trying to exhaust this card of the hostages is one of its last resorts, trying to actually survive and stand on its feet in the end of this whole story. So what Hamas tries to do and will try to do is to exhaust the card as much as possible. It will try to prolong this whole phase of releasing the hostages as much as possible. What he's going to do is a policy of what I call salami, meaning he's going to try to slice it down to small quotas of Israeli hostages that he keeps, in order basically hoping that each and every time there will be some sort of like a ceasefire or repose. And that way Hamas actually hopes to, I would say, to evaporate, if you wish, or to dissolve the Israeli military campaign. On the other hand, Israel's major pressure card on Hamas is the military campaign. Hamas is releasing these people because of the Israeli military campaign. And therefore, we got a situation where you got very clearly colliding interests, sort of speaking. Hamas wants to prolong as much as possible. Israel needs to put much more pressure, militarily speaking, on Hamas in Gaza Strip in order to push Hamas and to get it done and over with as soon as possible. And so I think that this is what we'll roughly speaking see in the next couple of weeks.
Well, this is the challenging part, isn't it, Avi? How do you get those hostages all released while still weakening Hamas as a military force in Gaza?
Well, Todd, as I said from the beginning of this war on day one, I said, look, I think that the Israeli government is going to fight that war as if there are no Israeli hostages. And at the same time, Israel is going to negotiate the release of those hostages as if there is no war. And I think that up until now, this is exactly what we saw on the ground. And I think it's very likely the scenario that we are going to see in the next couple of weeks coming down ahead.
What about a two-state solution, bigger picture, if we look down the road here, probably quite a while down the road, but the idea of trying to come up with a workable solution that works for both sides, and I know that we're probably further from any sort of two-state solution right now than we were before October 7th. But what's your take on that, Avi?
Well, Todd, I would like to insert a new approach in the Western discussion regarding the whole story of the two-state solution. And here is my approach. It cannot be done, and I'm not dealing here with the game of blame. I found both Israelis and Palestinians mutually responsible for the gloomy reality. My major point is that any kind of an arrangement, an agreement between Israel and Palestinians must be and can only be done in a context of a regional frame, meaning bringing to the picture the major Arab states who are interested in stability, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, Jordan, and others, who actually views Hamas as a major threat to their own their own national security. And so you got here an interesting conjunction of interests of both Israel, those Arab major players, international community, obviously the United States of America, to create a situation on the ground that will be what I call this frame that I'm talking about, will create these scaffoldings upon which we could build a gradual process of arrangements on the ground. Talking about two-state solution is currently, as it has been up until now, actually irrelevant. But I think that if we change the mindset, if we change the approach towards that issue and talk about a regional framework, what I call a regional envelope, I would say that this is much more realistic path to take in order to make a positive progress for both Israelis and Palestinians who are looking for a positive process and not for the continuation of violence, death, and destruction.
Avi Melamed joining us from Tel Aviv. He's a Middle East analyst. Thank you for your time, Avi. Great to have you part of our coverage today. Much appreciated.
Of course, though. Thank you so much for having me.